Hello and welcome to the Inspired Business Media channel. Today I'm joined by the Director of Player Safety and Customer Service at Star Stable Entertainment, Cecilia Munthe. Thank you for joining me today, Cecilia.
Thank you so much for being here.
So we're going to go more in depth about your career shortly, but I think first of all, let's start at the beginning. Can you tell us a bit about your career to date?
Yes, I can. So I started what feels like a long time ago, that wasn't that bad, but in gambling. So basically online games like casino, bingo, etc. And then always then it was kind of customer focused, but it was a bit of the Wild West childhood of gambling. So everything was, we were doing a little bit of everything everywhere. And then I continued there for about 8 years of working in gambling and continued on my customer focused journey with them, working in CRM, customer engagement, then started working in a company called DSET, which is a music subscription company. And there I continued that customer focused journey with them, set out to go to customer service, worked in customer engagement. And the reason why I went into kind of the music industry is because I wanted to work with a product that I loved. And that is also what led me up to now working at Star Stable Entertainment, which is working with a product that do things that I love, which is magic and horses, and directed to girls, which is another thing I care deeply about. So that's why I've kind of ended up where I am today, and I've now expanded my scope into working with safety as well as the kind of customer engagement, customer experience.
It sounds amazing. Definitely a very interesting career so far. I know you studied literature and dreamt of becoming a publisher one day, which is quite a contrast to what you're doing now. How did you get into the gaming industry?
So it's actually, I started at the kind of right end. I started writing for a kind of web magazine directed to women, but it was owned by a gambling industry back then. So when the company decided that that wasn't kind of the right way of growing the business, I got offered a job. I was working in CRM. And back then, CRM was very much kind of copywriting, brand management. It's pretty much a little bit of everything. So I jumped on that opportunity, and I have actually never looked back. So it ended up being a great choice.
Amazing. So are there any events or moments in your career that have inspired you to get to where you are now?
It's two that stands out more than anything. And one is actually when I started in that gambling company, the CEO at the time, he came up to me on like my first week and he sat me down and said, okay, you write a list of 10 things that you would do to improve the company. And I was super intimidated, and I was like, I know nothing, I'm junior, I have no idea. But I kind of did my list of 10 things. And he came back and we went through the list, and he was like, actually, most of these they're not able to do this. But he decided to implement one of my ideas, which was kind of started a charity room. This was a bingo company. And I think for me, it just stood out how much the kind of support of a manager, of a leader that believes in you, that actually anyone, no matter where you are in your career, can make a difference. So that was super kind of important to me in the beginning of my career. And the second one is also kind of a previous manager who, when I started at DSO, he sat down with me and he was like, I've had to make some tough decisions for the business, and I made some people quite unhappy, and I want you on board to kind of set up a new team, but also kind of work on relationship and inspire people to kind of move forward from the negativity that's happened. And that also very much kind of set the tone for me in my career and me as a leader, and kind of both having that belief from a manager, but also getting the opportunity to build a team from scratch, but also kind of bring that, leadership and a relationship building into my management. So I think those two together has really shaped who I am, but also shows me how important it is to have a good leader that believes in you on all steps in your career.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds like kind of given the chance and being put out there to kind of make your own decisions and kind of make the decisions for other people really has impacted you in your career going forward.
Exactly. I think exactly the kind of belief from someone and then being able to make those changes happen and then see the results as well has been super kind of impactful for me.
Great, amazing. As a woman working in a heavily male dominated environment, have there been any challenges to overcome? And what advice would you give to others in the same position?
So this one it's an interesting one, because I would definitely lie if I said there hasn't been any challenges. But I think part of the problem of this is that they're never as open as you might think they are. So for instance, for me, if I have to think about kind of, no one has never been openly disrespectful to me. But what it is it can be in the jokes, it can be in the situations, it's kind of, a bit hidden sexism or hidden kind of disrespect within that. Which I think makes it really hard, because it's hard to step up for yourself and it's all kind of hidden behind a joke, or it's hidden behind, something else. So I think what I've done in those situations is I've tried to kind of have a combination of a bit of humor, diplomacy and professionalism. So I wish, in a way, I could stand up and just say you should always fight against everything. But I honestly think that it's very hard. So to me, it's been a combination of kind of definitely standing up for me when it's an open disrespect, but also kind of, meeting situations with either professionalism and not just kind of, accept or acknowledge that joke or the situation, or actually deflect it a bit with humor for myself. And that's just something that helped for me. And another problem I found, I worked in London for 10 years, was that there was very few female leaders in executive positions or on board members. So it's hard to find that inspiration. And you look around and you're like, how am I going to reach there when I can't see anyone else having done that? And I think what I've done is I kind of build a network of people around me, around like my friends and family and colleagues, where I've chosen to look at other ways of success and seeing like their ways of success that isn't necessarily becoming a board member, but it's succeeding in something and kind of finding the inspiration there. And I think that's been super helpful to me, because if I look at it that way, I see so many women succeeding everywhere around me.
Yeah, definitely. And moving on from that point, or kind of gathering with that point, have you seen kind of any changes, or maybe more females coming into your industry, or do you think it's still very a male dominated space?
It's definitely been some changes. It's opened up, and I think it depends on kind of what I look at. But if I look at the kind of gambling/gaming industry, it's become a bit more cleaned up, and I think in this respect that's a good thing, because when it's too much of a boys' club, those kind of jokes and those kind of situations happens. Now it's become a much more professional world, which I think is really good. Women is also taking a bigger place in a really good way. And what I've seen, for instance, is that the thought of leadership had changed in the last 10 years in terms of those kind of maybe traditional women values of listening and kind of mentoring has become much more important in leadership. And today there's lots of trainings in most companies around how to become a better manager, which have all of those values at heart. And I think that's part of it's because women has taken a bigger room. With that said, I still think there's way too few women in the top management anyway. And I think that especially if you look at board members. So we have a little bit further to go on that one, but I definitely think we're on the right way.
Good. And speaking of kind of leadership, you've stated that it's important to have a team that's not only well functioning and delivers, but is also happy. So what approaches do you take with your leadership to achieve this?
So I think kind of speaking a little bit about what I've experienced to got me to where I am, I think a lot about that kind of inspiring, but also, leadership that helps lead others and kind of, enables them. So I would say I'm very much someone who delegates, but I delegate with the aim of trying to help people grow. And I think when you have that open conversation with the team, I think there's a lot of growth to be had, but it's also helpful for you as a leader, because it gives you time for the important bits, which is being there for your team. Another thing that's super important for me is this honest feedback. And honest feedback is sometimes harder than you think, because, sometimes it's hard to give negative feedback or just make feedback actually mean something. I've actually taken that from my own relationships at home. No one can read your mind if you don't tell them what you want. And I think that's where kind of for me feedback is. It's like I can't expect my team to know what I need from them if I don't tell them straight up. And then a lot of transparency as well. And not just my transparency, but also company's transparency. In my experience, people do their best work when they not only feel enabled and seen, but also know why they're doing it, but for the company's greater good as well. So I think that's the main parts. And then a big thing for me is I also think people should have fun. So one thing I did a lot pre-pandemic was going for drink stormings, and drink stormings is basically brainstorms with alcohol. But what it does is that just getting out of the office and being able to kind of share a drink together, it's actually quite productive because you tend to see things in a little bit of a different way. But it also kind of just binds the team together, but not just going for like drinks, but actually have that kind of the business still in mind, the kind of the work still in mind, because it kind of ties you together in that aspect as well.
Amazing. So saying that, how would you describe your leadership style?
So I would probably say like I'm a bit of a hands-on delegator that kind of believes in our team. And with hands-on in that respect, I mean that I'm still there. I'm very much present for my team, and I'm very much aware of what they work on. But I do kind of delegate the work to them in terms of I believe that they can do it themselves, but I will be there for any questions basically. And especially as where I am right now in my kind of career, where I'm building a lot, setting up a lot of teams, kind of hiring a lot of new people, growing. You need to have being there as well. You can't just step away from everything and let because people need you.
Amazing. It sounds like you kind of give people their responsibilities, but you're also there to kind of support when they need it.
Yeah, and I think it's people talk a lot about not being kind of too invested or too, and I don't like micromanagement at all, but I think you definitely need to also be there, but also understand what your team is working on, because it's hard to give support if you don't actually understand what it is that they're facing.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us about the work you're doing at Star Stable at the moment and any trends that you're noticing within your industry.
Yes, so at the moment I am looking after quite a lot of different departments within Star Stable. So it's customer service, it's translation and localization, community moderation, as well as player safety. So right now we're going through a bit of a growth journey. So we're doing a lot around just scaling up as a company and scaling up as a team, which I think a lot of people are doing in our industry. But I think the most important work that we're doing right now is around player safety. So in one way, more kind of the more traditional things, we're targeting towards kids under 18s. So we do a lot of work making sure that our platform is as safe as possible for our players being on it. And another work that we're doing is around inclusion and diversity, because this also goes very much hand in hand with feeling safe. So we're both doing it kind of from a product point of view, where we're developing our product with this in mind, but also kind of internal from a communications and just brand presence point of view. How are we truly inclusive and diverse towards our players? And it's not easy. We're definitely running into different challenges around this. One quite interesting project that we have right now in my team in the localization and translation part is that how do you, for instance, translate non-binary genders? Some languages actually, use, they conjugate based on if it's a female or a male. How do you actually then translate that into, a gender that doesn't see themselves as either female or male? So there's a lot of these kind of works that we do that are very kind of big projects, but that also means a lot for our players, that if we can kind of solve this, we will also open up their world and a lot. So that's super important for us at the moment. And we're also looking at things like toxicity in the chat and in the game, where we're trying to kind of guide our players to be less toxic, to talk in ways that are kind of kind their friends and to the other players. So there's a lot of kind of this work that isn't just basically, making changes to the product, but also in how we as people in Star Stable think, and how we kind of address new projects and new work.
Amazing. It sounds like almost kind of cultural changes that you're trying to put into place.
Exactly. And it is. I mean, one of the things that we have is that because we're working towards young females, we know that we're talking to them at a very impressionable age. So the work that we do here will help them as well, and in their growth journey too. So we're kind of taking that very much to heart. We're all trying to kind of find that, girl in ourselves and go, what would have helped us when we were that age? And especially when it comes to things like toxicity around you. I mean, being a teenage girl is not easy. And we know the Mean Girl movies from America. We know that kind of, the downside of certain things. So we're trying to just kind of help people to think about these things as well, and kind of, be open and not talk to others with hate or disrespect, whatever. So it's a lot of work around that as well, which exactly as you say, is a lot about culture, both our internal culture, but also kind of culture in general, where, as big brands, we're responsible for help setting that culture.
Yeah, definitely. So you've spoken a bit about the challenges that you're facing. What kind of processes do you put in place to overcome these?
I mean, for me, around safety is one of the absolute biggest kind of issues that we have, as I said. And the reason for this is that, internet, as well as Star Stable, is an open place. And that comes with some of the best things and some less good things. So we love that about, our game, that people can meet, people can be who they are. And this is why this kind of, diversity and inclusion work is done, to make sure that people feel that they can be who they are. But then we also need to work proactively at making this safe place for the players. So outside all of this work that we're doing, kind of more on a culture bit and kind of internal discussions, we're also having more, technical things in place. We have an AI that will make sure that you can't write certain things in the chat. We have human moderation on top of that will kind of look at things that come through anyway and say, why has this happened? We proactively reach out to customers if we see things that they're talking about that we don't really, we're worried for them or whatever it might be. And you can always reach out to us directly. So we do a lot of work of trying to kind of, as we're saying, making as safe a place as possible around this.
Right. So saying that, what changes do you see for your industry moving forward?
So if I'm seeing it kind of from my perspective, it's very much around accessibility and compliance. So accessibility, because you can access us anywhere, everywhere, at any time, which also means that we have to be present whenever you want to access us, but also poses the challenges of why kind of compliance come into the picture, where we need to make sure that we're also, again, making it safe for our players being on our platform. So I think that is kind of something that the entire industry is facing. We've been growing and we keep growing, and we kind of keep finding new ways of reaching our players, but then making sure that we are compliant and safe at the same time.
Amazing. So I just wanted to know if there's a particular piece of advice that was given to you when you're growing up that's really stuck with you.
So yeah, it actually is, and it's quite a funny one. So when I was around 15, I was voted to be my school Lucia, and Lucia is a Swedish thing, and it basically means that you stand in front of the entire school with a crown of candles on your head and you sing, which was my absolute nightmare. I couldn't imagine anything worse. I was definitely not someone who wanted to stand in front of people and do anything. And I had decided that, like, I'm not going to do this. It's not going to happen. And then my dad sat me down and he kind of looked at me and said, when you're really afraid of doing something, then that is probably the thing you should be doing. And he was just so right. So I ended up doing it. I did survive. and it hasn't really made me want to stand in front of people more. But every time something comes up and my instinct goes, no, I don't want to do this, I kind of hear his voice going, actually, you probably should do this to grow. And that has probably been part of why I've grown and kind of do take steps out of my comfort zone.
Amazing. I think the best things do happen when you're taken out of your comfort zone, don't they?
Exactly. And it's really hard. And, no one really wants to. That's the whole thing. But I think it's just helped me having that little voice kind of saying that thing over and over again. And I'm like, okay, it's time again. It's time again to do something I don't want to do.
Oh, lovely. Lastly, what advice would you give someone wanting to start a career in your industry?
So I think, first of all, be open and flexible. The industry I'm working in, which I would say is kind of the digital tech space, even if I've kind of done different things in my career, is very quick moving. So the job you have today might look very different tomorrow. So I think it's being kind of open for that change and being flexible when things change and not seeing it as something negative, I think is super important. The other thing is something I feel very, very strongly about, and that is learn to say no. Especially for women, we tend to kind of say yes to things. We tend to take on too much. And one of the things I've always had as a bit of a guideline is try and think that leave at least 10% of your maximum capacity, because that leaves room for passion projects that might come your way. Because most companies today have those projects that no one really kind of owns, or there's room for someone to step into them. And if you give yourself the ability to do that, that is also going to help you grow in ways that you maybe didn't even know about from the beginning. And the last one, it's really boring, but very important, and that is learn your numbers. Budgets are something that is very important, and everything today is being measured. So if you don't understand what it is that you're looking at, it's very hard to take the right business decisions.
Amazing. That's so great. Thank you so much for speaking to me today.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.